Ever looked at ancient Chinese texts, those
Yeah.
elegant columns of characters, and felt like you're facing this beautifully intricate puzzle, but maybe half the pieces are missing?
Yeah, no punctuation to guide you.
Exactly. And then you've got this fascinating thing called tongjiazi, where characters seem to almost morph, stand in for each other.
Hmm.
If you've ever wondered how we might, crack these ancient linguistic codes, maybe with some modern tech help, well, you've definitely tuned into the right deep dive today.
Yeah, today we're really digging into that intersection. Artificial intelligence and classical Chinese, or Wenyan.
Right.
Our mission really is to understand what AI can actually do right now with two big challenges.
Right.
Adding punctuation, which, came later,
Yeah.
and spotting those tricky.
Tongjiazi, tongjiazi.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's almost like the early writing system had a sort of character borrowing program going on, wouldn't you say?
That's a good way to put it. For anyone listening who isn't familiar, they're basically ancient characters used instead of the proper one,
Yeah.
often because they sounded alike or maybe had a related meaning. The system was still, evolving.
Still getting standardized. Makes sense.
Precisely. And what's really interesting here is seeing how AI, specifically these large language models, tries to handle this.
Okay.
We're actually looking at a real-world AI consultation record, seeing how it tried to navigate both the punctuation gaps and these tongjiazi.
And the insights could be pretty useful, not just for ancient China buffs, right, but maybe for anyone into language processing.
Absolutely. Or even just how communication evolves. It touches on some fundamental stuff about how AI learns or tries to learn language across time.
Okay, let's unpack this then. Starting with punctuation, or duanju as you called it.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, imagine reading, I don't know, a really dense old English novel, but with 0 commas, no periods, nothing.
You cuff going.
Right. That's often the deal with Wenyan, and getting those breaks right, that segmentation is absolutely crucial for the meaning.
It really is. And what's fascinating is how just subtly shifting where you put a pause can completely change the interpretation.
Wow.
So the consultation we looked at, it included some initial tests using ChatGPT specifically on this, on sentence segmentation.
Okay, using ChatGPT, and how did it do?
Well, they gave it this first test sentence. Jetwell 2 is a missing character.
Right.
ChatGPT's first guess to fill that gap was brew, which means virtue. So it punctuated it like this.
Okay, so filial piety and virtue. That's one way to read it. Maybe suggesting King Wen's virtue is embodied in all things.
That's one possibility, yeah. Then they made it a bit trickier, gave it a slightly longer sentence. Teachuya, same structure, just more context added.
Exactly. And this time, ChatGPT suggested which means obedience or compliance.
Giving? Giving. Whew. So now it's filial piety and obedience.
Okay. Interesting how it shifted its guess with more text.
But here's the really telling part. This highlights a key thing about language understanding. When the researchers gave ChatGPT more background.
The context.
Exactly. Specifically telling it the missing character probably related to how King Wen's influence spread through his filial piety. Well, then the AI's suggestions got much better.
Closer to what scholars think.
Much closer. It proposed her, meaning to educate or influence, and also show, meaning to adopt or govern.
Wow, okay. So what we're seeing is AI can spot patterns, make educated guesses about punctuation, maybe.
It can.
But that real deep understanding of historical language, it really hangs on knowing the culture, the history, stuff AI doesn't just know unless you feed it that specific context.
Precisely. It's not just about the symbols on the page, but the whole world behind them that shapes meaning and, how sentences were built back then.
Right. So the consultant's final word on punctuation was...
Pretty nuanced, actually. They basically said, look, ChatGPT shows it can do sentence segmentation to some extent. It has ability.
But
it's definitely not a perfect fix.
yeah.
And importantly, they pointed out there are already specialized Chinese tools out there, like Ronjian.
Oh, right. Tools specifically for this.
Yeah, trained on huge amounts of already punctuated Wenyan. So they're generally much more effective for just that specific task,
Right.
more mature currently.
That's a really practical point. Good to know. Okay, so AI is making some headway with punctuation, but with caveats. Now, let's get into this other layer. Tongjiazi. That sounds even more complex.
It adds a whole different dimension for sure.
Mm-hmm.
As the notes explain, tongjiazi is this unique feature of early written Chinese. using one character instead of another,
Based on.
primarily based on sound or sometimes meaning similarity. It was pretty common, especially, before everything got standardized.
Like the early writers were a bit more flexible. Sound or sense could guide the pen, maybe.
Kind of, yeah. There are a few main ways it happened. First, you have phonetic loans, yinjin tongjia.
Okay, phonetic, based on sound.
Exactly. A character that sounds like the one you mean gets used instead. A classic example is shuch, to speak, being used for you, please.
Ah,
Like in the phrase, you, literally, speakers are pleased, but it means those who are pleased.
okay, I see. The sound is the bridge. Any others?
Another sound one, you, to desire, used for you to bathe. Like, do you want to bathe when dew is present? Again, very similar sounds.
That makes a lot of sense. Almost like a typo based on sound, like typing there for there in English sometimes.
A bit like that, yeah. Then the next category is graphic loans, extinjin tongjia.
Graphic. So based on how they look.
Right. Characters that look similar might get swapped. For instance, lie, to come, could be used for lie, a type of weed or goosefoot,
Huh, okay.
as in coming but not going. Or harsh, standing in for what or why. Like in why consider it difficult? The visual resemblance probably played a part there.
Okay, so we have sound-alikes and look-alikes. Is there a third type?
Yep. Finally, there are semantic loans, yijin tongjia.
Semantics, so based on meaning.
Exactly. Characters with related meanings get used for each other. The notes gave already, or stop, being used for coot to use.
Okay.
In a phrase like, not enough to use to overcome, basically. And woo, not or nothing, could stand in for woo, do not.
Like
Exactly. A gentleman does not contend. The meanings are close enough for substitution in context.
So it wasn't just random. There were reasons, sound, looks, meaning. Why did they even do this? Why use tongjiazi?
Well, the notes point to a few things. One big one was just efficiency.
Easier than making a new character?
Pretty much. If an existing one sounded right or meant something similar, why invent a new one? It also helped meet, like, stylistic needs, parallelism, rhyme in poems and stuff.
Okay. Literary reasons too.
Yeah. And interestingly, sometimes using an existing character phonetically might have actually been closer to how people spoke back then.
That's fascinating. Like a window into the spoken language almost. So, okay, if you're reading an old text and you think, hang on, this character feels off, how do you figure out if it's a tongjiazi and what it should be?
It takes some detective work. The notes list a few key methods. Number one is contextual analysis.
Looking at the words around it.
Exactly. What makes sense in the sentence and the whole passage? That's your biggest clue. Then, consulting ancient texts and commentaries.
It's like old dictionaries.
Yeah, things like the tongjiazi. They often explain character origins and uses, including tongjiazi. And finally, phonetic and semantic inference.
Basically, making an educated guess based on sound or meaning.
Right, using your knowledge of ancient Chinese sounds and meanings to see what might fit.
So you need to be part linguist, part historian, part detective. Okay, how did ChatGPT handle this challenge? Identifying tongjiazi.
Well, the initial assessment was similar to punctuation, really. It shows some potential.
But again,
Context is king. Without enough background understanding the historical sound changes, the specific text's context, the AI's guesses about the original character and his meaning, they might be pretty off.
so it struggles with that fluidity, the historical shifts in language use.
That seems to be a core challenge, yes. It's not just character recognition, it's understanding how language worked and changed back then.
Did the consultation give examples of common tongjiazi that ChatGPT might encounter?
It did. And one was actually quite interesting. The original character was listed as yo, and the tongjiazi was also listed as zhou.
Wait, the same character? How does that work?
Well, the original meaning given was yo, to reside, or a dwelling. It suggests that sometimes tongjiazi isn't about swapping different characters, but maybe using the same character to represent a slightly different but related sense, a subtle shift in meaning within context.
Okay. So it's not always a direct swap. Sometimes it's using the same character with a slightly expanded meaning for that specific instance. That's subtle.
Very subtle. The other examples were more, let's say, typical swaps. Wo, Huang, perish. Used for woo, not nothing.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, Dao, the way, for dia, Dao, and be for yer, you, and who, perhaps someone for Whew, confused.
Those make more immediate sense as substitutions. Okay, so we've looked at AI tackling punctuation and these tongjiazi. What's the big picture takeaway from this consultation? Can AI really handle Wenyan?
The main conclusion is pretty clear. AI, like ChatGPT here, definitely shows promise. It can assist with both tasks.
But it's not a magic bullet.
Absolutely not. It's crucial to remember it's not yet a replacement for human expertise.
Yeah.
That deep dive into the historical, the cultural, the linguistic context, that's still essential for getting the interpretation right.
Yeah, that resonates. It's like having a really smart assistant, maybe, but they still need guidance from someone who truly understands the field.
That's a great analogy. And the consultant also made recommendations for moving forward.
Ooh, like what?
Suggesting more research, obviously, but specifically collaborations. Getting experts in linguistics, infoscience, stats, all working together.
Makes sense, combining skill sets.
And maybe using more advanced models. They mentioned TAIDE for bigger internal studies. So it's definitely an active area. People are pushing this forward.
Okay, so for you listening, what's the bottom line here? It seems like AI is, well, it's becoming a genuinely useful tool for wrestling with ancient Chinese, right?
It can be, yes. It offers potential shortcuts, maybe new perspectives on texts we thought we knew.
But you've got to use it wisely.
Critically, yeah. Recognize the limits. It's a helper, a powerful one maybe, but not a substitute for really engaging with the text and its world yourself.
And that leaves me with kind of a final thought to chew on. With AI evolving so fast, how is our relationship with historical texts, with old languages, going to change?
Big question.
Right. Will AI make this stuff accessible to way more people, democratize it? Or could it, I don't know, add new layers of machine interpretation we need to be wary of?
Yeah. Does it flatten nuance or reveal it?
Exactly. It's definitely something interesting to think about, you know.
Yeah.
As technology keeps changing how we connect with our cultural past,